What happens when you are welding and you have a gap that you just gotta deal with? Look at this one here. I'm gonna TIG weld this square tube joint with a massive gap, and I'm going to show you how to turn it into this. Again, take a look at the gap that I had to deal with. This is 1.5 by 1.5 square tube. It's a wall thickness of 1/8 of an inch. And as you can see, I'm preparing the pipe here by deburring it as well as cleaning it. I'm decontaminating it and brushing it with a Scotch-Brite pad. When I'm doing this, I want the grain finish that's super clean and organized. This is key. Wait for it. I'm gonna show you why in a bit here. Now, typically when setting up something like this, you would obviously want your parts to meet like this here where we see a tight fit. No gap anywhere. And as these parts are held secure, they should form a 90-degree angle, staying nice and flat on the table, or whatever angle you're trying to get. But I am going to be a naughty boy. For this one, I'm gonna move it back. We're gonna deal with a gap here because sometimes things just don't line up. Sometimes we cut things to the wrong dimensions, or sometimes we are just lazy as balls. But with this one, we're gonna say screw it, and we're gonna go ahead and fill it up. In doing so, here's the first thing that we need to consider. When we are welding a joint with no gap, it is going to be much more secure. It's gonna be much less prone to distortion and moving around during weldment. When we are dealing with a joint like this with a massive gap, this little sucker is gonna move around a ton. We want this thing to remain square as I want it in a 90-degree, as well as remaining flat sitting on the table. So I would argue that this is one of the most important stages where we need to properly secure and clamp the parts. I'm gonna assemble everything in this small jig fixture on my strong hand tools table here. Everything's gonna be assembled nice and tight so it's gonna stay 90 degrees square. You can also see everything is securely clamped in place on the table so it's not gonna move around at all when I'm tacking things together nice and flat. If you don't have a big fancy table like this, it's all good. Just make sure that you get a table that is flat, as well as finding a way you can secure some scrap material like some angle iron or something like that. Whatever you can make good, solid, straight fences out of. Now, we're gonna get the welder set up here. Today, I'm using the CanaWeld 201 Pulse D. You see this machine all the time. We all love this machine. It's a great bang for your buck. It's absolutely loaded with features. It is a dead simple machine that has a ton of features inside of it. And again, CanaWeld is running a deal right now where you can get a rebate on these machines. Now is the time to make the move. If you're considering it, go for it. Okay, so getting going here, my settings are very basic, very straightforward. And all I'm doing is just putting good, sturdy tacks, bridging the two pieces of material together. You can see I'm starting off with a puddle on one side, and I'm kind of just bridging it across the gap. I'm putting each tack right on the corner of the square tubing. If I were to put my tacking in the middle of each pass, this area is going to pull and distort really badly. Putting them in these little areas here is going to help out in combination with being securely clamped in the jig fixture. And honestly, even though we are being strategic with our tacking, we're still gonna have some distortion to deal with. So check things as you go. You can see here, I'm checking it with my square. It's a little bit out here. A couple quick strategic adjustments here. Perfect. Just remember, with whatever project you're working on, even when things fit perfectly together in a jig, always stop and check your dimensions as well as stuff like square all the time. If you check these things as you go, you're going to be able to take care of them on the fly instead of leaving everything for the end of the weldment when everything's locked in. Now, everything is secure, nice and straight and flat, so let's get going with the real weld out here. Okay, getting going here, this is something that I've always referred to as a term called buttering. This is essentially where I'm just going to build up an edge or a surface with filler material by welding. You can see it, I'm basically doing it on the edge over and over here a few times. I'm going to flip over the piece and spread it around to the opposite side too, so I'm not just overloading one side with too much heat. As we are buttering out the edge, this is kind of like TIG welding on the edge of a knife. Again, the tube thickness that I'm working with here is relatively thin, so I definitely have to be careful with the amount of heat and filler that I am using here. I don't want the filler material to fall to the inside of the tube as I build it up. This is going to cause the surface of what I'm welding to become hollow or concave. I want to be building things out towards the mating part, not have it sag in. And as I start to stack this up, it's going to reach out and bridge with the other piece of material here. Then I just keep stacking it on more and more until everything's completely filled up on each side. I'm gonna do some tricks with my grinder in a few minutes here. Hang tight for that. Taking a look at it here, you can see I've kind of just blasted this entire gap with good heat and good filler, as well as trying to keep things nice and flat and checking my square to make sure that nothing's moving around too much. Again, if you encounter any distortion or anything like that at this point here, it's gonna be easier to deal with it now instead of leaving it for later. It's gonna be impossible to fix for the most part if you leave it for after of this. Now, a quick disclaimer here. Let's get this out of the way. Obviously, if this was a real project or anything serious that I was working on, especially some kind of structural joint or part, there is absolutely no way I would personally let this slide. Welding a gap is fun for a demonstration here for what we're going over today as far as like learning purposes. But as you are building a project, you want all your parts to meet completely as you are expecting and all of your joints to fit nice and tight. This helps to not only prevent distortion later down the line, but it's also going to help to improve the structural integrity of your part. Filling in a joint like this is fun to do like we're doing here for a demonstration today, but I would not recommend this, especially if you know that the joint that you are doing this for is going to be under any kind of stress later down the line. Just make sure that when you're working on projects like this, make sure you always cut your parts to the proper dimensions. Obviously, it sounds simple, but hey, everybody makes mistakes. Distortion is going to be much more minimal when you weld things out, and your parts are going to turn out with much better strength and structural integrity. Okay, now getting going on the sides here on the inside of the 90-degree angle. Pretty much the exact same deal here. I'm just going to butter this one up exactly as I did the other side. It's a little cramped in here, very tough to film, but you can see that I'm jazzing it with a good amount of heat, and again, making sure the filler material sticks to the pipe in a way that butters up the edge, not falling inside, becoming hollow or concave. Using adequate filler material is very important with this one, and without using adequate heat also, we could potentially have inadequate fusion in the welding area here. Obviously, big problem. After I've totally filled her up, I can run some dry passes over the areas where I want to completely blend the filler material into the base material. I just want a perfect special little spot that I can run a show pass over after my grinding techniques. That's right, more sneaky tricks coming up here. Stick around. Okay, so here we go. Time to let you in on the plan here. I'm gonna switch to my grinding and finishing mode. Remember how I prepped the material at the beginning of this exercise with a grain finish? This is where it comes in handy. Watch this. I'm starting here with my flapper wheel on my grinder. It's a medium grit, nothing crazy or too aggressive at all. Now what I want to do here is just kind of blend everything all together. I don't want to grind or dig into the parent material. I just want to make sure that the new welding areas that we did look like they are part of the original material. You can see me carefully following the flat surfaces as well as the corner profiles, working very gently with the grinder here. Now this is common. You saw last time when I did this on an episode, we did this with a coped pipe joint. You may see little bits of porosity here and there. This happens with little spots that haven't been properly fused together. There's also other reasons this can happen with gas inclusion in the weld, stuff like that. But regardless of what happened, we need to take care of it here. What I'm actually going to do is use a small punch, and I'm going to punch out these little pockets to open them up. This makes it much easier to properly fill in with a couple dabs of filler. And then we just have a couple spots like this here. I'm just going to have to repeat the process with my grinder and my sander. You may see this with anything that you're fixing or filling up gaps and stuff like that. This is very common when working with cast material. Sometimes it takes forever to cook these pockets of porosity out of the base material. It's really annoying. But all you do is just take things down with your grinder, and as you find these spots, take the time to open them up properly, fill them in properly, and then just grind them down again and see how it turned out. I know, it's super annoying if you keep finding little pockets of stuff like this, but trust me, take care of them now, because if you have to deal with it later, it's gonna be super annoying. Trust me. And when things are close enough, I'm going to switch to my 3M Scotch-Brite pad on the same grinder, and this is where I'm really gonna start to blend the surfaces together. But this is exactly what I'm doing here. I want to really make sure there aren't any spots where I've dug out too much with the flapper wheel, and I can really make everything match on the flat surfaces around the corners as well. Again, I'm just gently making sure I can blend these areas out. I'm not focusing too much on one area more than another. I just want to get everything smooth enough so I can work with it in a few minutes here. You can see I didn't hit the inside of the 90-degree areas with the flapper wheel. It's already blended out pretty decent from my TIG wash passes that I did. So I'll just make sure that this is smoothly blended out before moving on. Looking here, looks pretty clean. But let's get nuts. Next, I'm gonna hit everything with my orbital sander with an 80 grit pad on it. And this is where I'm gonna work some magic to blend everything together. I'm working with the flat spot of the pad, and I'm keeping it dead flat to blend out all of the grinding work that I did. We wanna blend this all together. After I'm happy with the flat spots, I'm gonna roll the sanding pad over the round edges, and this is gonna tie everything together really nicely. But if you're at the stage like this here, where you are completely happy with your grinding and sanding, grab that piece of 3M Scotch-Brite pad that we used at the beginning, and start to brush this material so that you regain the grain direction back with your hand. We want everything to be nice and straight with this finish. This is where we're gonna tie back into the prep that we did earlier, and it's much easier to blend this all together. This is really gonna show off your finishing work. And I mean, looking at it here, god dang, it looks good, all blended and finished. Okay, here we go. Now we can do our cosmetic passes over top to finish this up and make it look silky smooth. Hold on, let me get it over here. You guys know what this thing is here. I've been talking about this little tool a lot lately. This is a tungsten scribe. You can use it to scribe out guidelines that you can follow as you are welding. And as we get going here, I'm just going to start out really hot, get things nice and spicy again, and match the heat with the proper amount of filler material as if I'm doing any other pass. I'm going to monitor my width carefully, as well as how much filler and stepping distance I'm using as I'm moving along. Heading around joints like this on tubing like this is a lot of fun. This is kind of a time when you can start to get creative with your work. You can travel in different directions that you think would look good. You can position yourself so you're welding from different angles. Working on joints like this is a lot of fun. And as you can see here, as we're all finished up with the welding, we have a joint that looks almost as if there was no gap there at all. Pretty cool, right? We dealt with it like a pro. The piece stayed 90 degrees and relatively flat, and the weld over top of everything makes it look pretty good. I made this episode here on how to properly grind and finish a joint. It goes into way more detail with your grinding and finishing, as well as a lot of good information on joint preparation. Go watch that episode next. Do a random act of kindness for a stranger today. I am Dusty James. Bill and Chill. We'll talk soon. Peace.